Good morning, everybody. My name is Alessio Pettino. I'm the knowledge coordinator of the EU SME Centre in Beijing, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you today to this short webinar about trade fairs participation. So, today's webinar will be divided into three main parts. The first part, I will give a quick introduction of the EU SME Centre. Second part, we will have a speaker from the China IPR SME Help Desk, who will be introducing some of the main IPR challenges that the European SMEs face during trade fairs in China. Then in the third session, we will have three very distinguished speakers who will also share their experience and their insights about trade fairs in China from different perspectives. Then at the end, there will be a short Q&A. Maybe before beginning, I would like to say a few words about the SME Centre. The SME Centre is a project funded by the European Union. It has been around for 11 years already, and our objective is to help European SMEs to export to China, to grow and to do business in China. Our current phase will end next year in March, and we are implemented by a consortium of chambers of commerce, of European chambers of commerce in China, which you can see at the bottom. We partner with many partners, government actors, business organizations, both in China and in Europe, and we have a physical office in Beijing, which is where I'm joining now. We provide four main services. We have a knowledge center through which we publish reports, case studies, guidelines on different sectors in China. We also have an advice center, which is a sort of help desk where SMEs can come to us with specific questions, and we help them basically answer the questions. We have a training center. We organize trainings and workshops on different topics, and we also have an advocacy platform through which we try to disseminate news about new policies in China, calls for comment, and so on. Speaking about reports, I would like to say that we at the SME Centre every year we prepare a guide for trade fairs in China, and this has been around for already 4 or 5 years, and the last revision was made at the end of last year. We will do also one at the end of this year. Basically, it provides very practical advice to SMEs for selecting trade fairs, for preparing for trade fairs, and to what should be done during and after trade fairs. And it's free, completely free, and you can find it on our website. I would also like to introduce very briefly one initiative that we are planning, that we are going to do in the next couple of months. We are going to organize an European SME Pavilion at the coming China International Industry Fair, which will take place in mid-September in Shanghai. Now, for those of you who don't know the CIIF, CIIF is one of the biggest fairs in China. Is organized by 9 ministries and the Shanghai municipal government, and it has huge numbers. We're talking about 200,000 trade visitors and over 2,600 exhibitors. We, in our pavilion, we are going to have around 20 companies, not only from the EU, but also from other non-EU European countries, in different sectors, mostly clean technologies, environment, energy, but also industrial automation, robotics, advanced manufacturing, ICT, automotive, new materials, new energy vehicles, and metalworking and CNC machine tools. Actually, CIIF is a very well-established fair in China, and all the tickets are already sold out, but we still have a couple of spots in our pavilion, so around 50 square meters. So if somebody would like to join, please don't hesitate to contact us. And there could be 2 categories of exhibitors. Of course, if your products are already in China, then it's pretty easy because you can participate through your subsidiary or through your agents and distributors. Or otherwise, if your products are not in China and you cannot come to China, obviously, we can help you to find a way to have you represented at this fair. We can either have one of our staff representing you, or we could try to help you coordinate with your national chamber of commerce here in China, or with external experts. And you can see here from this slide, prices are very, very low for a fair like this in China. And these are unique prices, like probably half of the prices you will receive if you apply on your own. Next, I would like to show a few pictures of how this pavilion is going to look like. So it's a very, very modern kind of design, and there will be an area of exposition, but then there will be an area for meetings, for launch reports. We plan to organize a lot of events. We are also asking SMEs participating in our pavilion to organize some events, some trainings for Chinese visitors, and so on. and that's it. Yeah, so I would like to say that we received very strong support from the Shanghai municipal government on this. They approached us early this year to ask us to set up this pavilion, and we will be part of the Leaders by IP tour on the opening day. There will also be a lot of Chinese organizations visiting us, media, and we also have a lot of experts who will be present there, who will be ready to provide technical assistance. So now I would like to go into the core of this presentation. This part I'm very happy to have with us Matthias Zubimendi, who is the IP business advisor at the China IPR SME Help Desk. Matthias advises on a daily basis European SMEs on intellectual property rights matters in China. He has been working in China for many years and has very in-depth knowledge of the Chinese IP systems. And again, every day they face questions. They receive questions from European SMEs who are having some IPR issues in China, so they know a lot about this field. Quick reminder: the IPR SME Help Desk is a project founded by the European Union and provides free technical assistance to European SMEs. Everything they do is free. And then here we go. Here is Matthias. Now you have to turn in the other direction. So, Matthias, thank you very much for being with us today. It's a great pleasure to welcome you. Again, as I mentioned, you deal with many companies who have difficulties, who are often, unfortunately, victims of scams. So you also attend frequently to trade fairs. We have done one a couple of months ago in Shanghai, where you were there. So you have a lot of experience in trade fairs. And what do you think? What preparations should SMEs do in terms of IPR protection before actually they attend the fair?
To take into account. Every preparation should be done in advance. When we're talking about IP protection in China, everything should be done before entering the market. And before entering the market means attending trade fair, as you mentioned, or even interacting with any potential client or partner. In order to know what to protect, the company, of course, first has to do a due diligence and check exactly what are they going to show in the trade fair. For example, if they're going to show their logo, the company name, their product's name, then we are talking about trademark protection. So they have to do the registration of all these trademarks. If they're considering settling in China, they also should take into consideration the possibility of registering their Chinese name, the Chinese version of their trademarks. Then if the company is technology-based, then most likely they will have mentioned patents, utility models. This type of intellectual property rights, they have a very significant or a very key aspect that one of the requirements is a novelty. They should be new, which means that is when the technology is going to be protected, the strategy should be think for all the potential markets. So it's difficult for those companies to simply do the registration only for the fair. This should be taken into account before. But if we are still in this period of time in which the company can do the registration, they should definitely do the registration before. And because for those IP rights, novelty is one of the key aspects. If they haven't done any registration in any part of the world, this means that the technology will be registered later, then they should avoid going to the fair or not going to the fair to disclose this information in the trade fair. Then there's another layer of protection that could be with copyrights. For example, companies can register their advertisement materials, the pictures they're going to show, the videos, etc., in order to have protection. Okay. As I mentioned before, it is important to do this before entering China. Why is that? Because there is a very clear and simple principle that companies should know, that is the registration principle, which also is combined with the first to file rule. This means that If you are not registered in China, you don't have protection. Period. That's it. And that company that is the first one to do the registration, that will have a priority over any future registration. It doesn't mean that that phase registration cannot be taken down, but it's going to be harder. And for SMEs, this can mean that they will have to, for example, rebrand, because sometimes the costs are so expensive that it's simply cheaper to abandon that copyright and go with another. It increases the cost significantly. Also, there is a take into account that is a territoriality principle. That means that all the protection that the company may have in Europe gives no protection at all in China. The same way the protection that they have in China gives no protection in Europe. Right. So even though those companies that say, because this is a common scenario, in which some companies say, but our brand is very famous in Europe, we are well known, we are well known in our country. Well, that gives you no protection in China. Do the registration, otherwise you will be facing
a lot of issues.
Far from ideal scenario.
Yeah, and you receive basically every day emails from companies.
Yes. We receive many emails, and they are always asking, like, okay, how should I prepare?
Right.
And our first advice is, if you haven't got any registration, do it.
Okay. Right.
And another common question is if I do the registration, but of course you register, you file the application, but till the time it is granted, pass a period of time. For example, registration, it could be over a year. Can I go? Can I start the registration now and then attend the trade fair? Because it's going to take a year, but the trade fair is in 3 months, so there's no time. Our advice is always, you can attend the trade fair, but we're going to attend the trade fair, but at the same time, be careful on doing the filing before attending. Because once you file, you will have the priority. Okay. So any future registration, then the first file to rule applies to you. So you will be able to take down future registration, but you have to file it first.
Very good. So, but what in some cases, you know, there is an opportunity rising, and you just don't have the time to do this, to register your IP. So what do I still want to attend this fair? What options do I have on the table?
If you don't have any protection at all, you didn't have any registration, then all your IP rights is going to fall under the scope of trade secrets. Trade secrets is any information, any aspect that is not known by your competitors. It is a secret that has value for you because it will give you a competitive advantage. And it is going to be protected with certain protective measures that could be physical, digital, or even legal or contractual. By physical measures, for example, I give you an example. There was a company that was trying to sell some engines that they belong to a huge truck, but the engine was not protected, so they were unable to show it. Otherwise, they would lose the novelty, they would lose their patent. But they wanted to show the final product. We said, we want to sell our truck, we need to show it. So what they did is showing the truck, but not with an open, not the truck open, so no one was able to see what was inside. Okay. So the innovative part was the engine. It was protected with a physical measure, the cover of the truck. But the truck was still visible, and they were still being capable of talking about the new advantages, not disclosing the technical aspect, but just saying why this truck is better, and attend, show your product, sell your product, but at the same time protecting the secrets. Another important protective measure are the legal ones, the non-disclosure agreements or NDAs, or non-disclose, non-use, and non-circumvention agreements or NNS agreements, which basically those are contracts that you have to sign with a new partner, a new potential client, in which due to the negotiation, you are forced to disclose certain details that involve sensible information that can affect, for example, again, a patent. But you, with those contracts, you force them to keep them confidential. If they don't do, they will have to compensate
Okay.
For this type of contracts, always consult with an expert, with a legal expert, because they have to be enforceable here in China. It's very advisable to carry Chinese language version of the contract. That's going to be way easier the way you enforce it. And yes, and they should have to be tailor-made. Otherwise, if you just pick up a sample on internet, it's going to be very likely that you won't be able to enforce it.
Understand. And we have to say that also there is legislation actually that protects trade secrets. So there is some legal basis that help you to do that. But you mentioned the example of the tractor, which I find it very interesting. But what if you know, maybe it's not a tractor but another product? What if you find someone that is actually infringing, is trying to infringe the design or the invention of your products?
Let's say you find someone that there is another booth in which they have one of the trademark on your products, or for example, the design, which can be protected with design patent. It is there, you see it. The first thing that the company should do is not to desperate and try to collect as much evidence as possible. At the end of the day, regardless what type of procedure you choose, you will need to prove everything. So you need to get as much evidence as possible. If you're talking about online trade fairs that now they are kind of trending, the best way of doing this is with blockchain. Blockchains allow you to get the information that is online, put it in a blockchain, in one node. In this way, you will have a timestamp of when this information was taken. You will be able to prove the content, and you will be able to prove that you didn't modify the content, because if you do so, it will be in the blockchain. It will be obvious, it can be shown. If you are not in an online trade fair, let's say you're in a traditional trade fair, then your option is going with the notary, to get the public notary to attend the trade fair, to see, take notes, and make a statement about what that person sees, what is visible, that the design has, for example, it is a design, it has these characteristics, take pictures, etc. Another important aspect is to know who the infringers are. Because yes, you saw them in the trade fair infringing your IP rights, but most likely they are doing so outside the trade fair. And at the end of the day, what really matters is to stop them to keep selling your products. So the first thing you should do, or the second thing you should do, is to learn who they are, get the legal name of the company, go to the National Enterprise Credit Information Policy System, which is a public database, and see who the shareholders are, who are the legal representatives, where is the address, have they been infringed, have they been punished before? Get as much information as possible and give all this information to the lawyer.
Very good. So, but what happens if you are not able to stop such infringers after the fair? What kind of options, what kind of enforcement instruments do you have available?
Well, most likely you won't be able to stop them for doing business because of what you do at the trade fair. Every trade fair, they have a dispute resolution protocol. There's normally a complaint center in which you can go. They will take the case. They most likely, if everything goes well, if you collect good evidence, if you have the IP rights certificates and you are capable of proving that you are the owner of that intellectual property, right? They will remove them from the trade fair. But then you're going to go further. So what you have to do is to first get an attorney, start building the case. That's why it's important to hold in with the evidence that you collected. Try to see, to investigate, for example, in e-commerce platforms, if they are doing the same, if they are selling their products the same way. And then you have the options of going with the traditional judicial system. Then here in China, you have the regular courts, which are not very advisable for intellectual property rights complex cases. Maybe if it is a very simple aspect, yes, you can go. But if everything that involves technology, is better to go with the intellectual property specialized jurisdictions that you may find in the main cities. And they are more than capable of taking care of these cases. The most important aspect here, of course, is not only to stop them to keep doing business, but also to get compensated for the damages that you receive due to those infringements. Also, I can mention other additional measures. For example, if you spot that someone is using your trademark, it is an intelligent strategy to register your trademark with the custom website. That way, customs will check if the products are going to be taken out of China. So at least you are keeping them within the blocking them, keeping them within the borders, and protecting other markets for being attacked for the protection that is made in China.
Very good. All right, Matthias, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I would like to say that if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, or you would like to have some professional advice, please reach out to the IPR SME help desk. As mentioned, they provide free technical assistance to all European SMEs within just a few working days. So please don't hesitate to go to them, but also to us in case, for instance, it was mentioned about doing some background checks, some diligence. We can help you doing that if you don't know how to do it. We also have some FAQs on our website that will show you how to do it step by step. So now, moving into the next session, I would like to introduce, we have three very distinguished speakers with us who will share also their experience from different perspectives. The first one is Mr. Bart Korsten, who is the managing director of Korsten International. Bart is a very renowned expert on China. He has also been a frequent speaker at many of the EU SME Centre activities in the past. He has more than 20 years of experience doing business in China since he joined his father's company actually in 1998. And they do a lot of investment projects in China. They're also present on the ground, particularly in Xi'an. And Bart speaks very frequently to seminars, workshops. He's also a certified service provider for the Flemish government and also gives lectures at university very often. So it's my pleasure to have you here with us, Bart, today. Then the second speaker would be Miss Lina, I hope I'll get your surname right, Bartosevich, who is also very renowned expert in Shanghai. She's been living in Shanghai for 12 years already, fully fluent in Chinese, and actually she started her career as an interpreter for business negotiations. And soon after that, she found out that the first barrier in these business negotiation projects is language. And for this reason, she established Litao Consulting, which is a boutique go-to-market firm providing one-stop market entry solutions for European clients. And I understand your key sector of focus is the food and beverage sector, but not only. And just to give you, they're growing very fast. And last year, they worked with a Lithuanian sauces and condiments company, and they developed 10 products tailored to the Chinese market, reaching more than 1,000 shelves and 5 online retail channels. We also mentioned with Matthias before about company names, the trademarks, and this is one of the key services. Maybe she will tell you more about that later. The last speaker, so thank you again, Lina, for being with us. The last speaker is Mr. Bruno Lopito, who is a very senior expert, managing director of CIIF China. And Bruno has very long experience in the Chinese infrastructure and maintenance market with very nice track record of setting up, developing, and managing high-tech companies, including R&D, research and development operations. He writes a lot of articles on China. He lectures on industrial risk management at Shanghai University. And in 2004, in partnership with the French CIIF Group, Bruno founded CIIF China, a very nice company which now has become China's largest maintenance consulting and a pioneer in the development of smart operation and maintenance solutions. CIIF, I'm also very nice, very pleased to announce that CIIF will be one of the companies participating in our European SME Pavilion at CIIF. So we really look forward to hearing your experience, Bruno. So thanks to all the three speakers again. I would like to start with some practical questions for all of you. Maybe the first one will be to Bart. It was also mentioned in the previous session about online trade fairs, which have been becoming pretty common in China as a result of COVID. So Bart, exhibitions are continuing as a normal here, and what options do European companies have when they want to participate in Chinese trade fairs, given the restrictions that there are still in place for travel?
Yes, hi. Thank you for involving me in this session. Regarding your question, companies, of course, that are in China, for them it's easy. They can send their China team to participate in exhibitions. And indeed, of course, there's also the opportunity of having online exhibitions or so-called hybrid exhibitions. Assuming that you want to participate in a physical exhibition where you want to have your own booth. So in that case, I think indeed there's probably then three options. One would be that you work with your distributor. So this, assuming that you already have a distributor who is representing your brand or your products in China. It can be even more than one, depending on which sector you are, B2B, B2C, or also maybe you have different distributors for different geographical locations, or even different market segments is also possible. So in that case, I think it's important that you train your distributor because not only they need to have all the technical information, but I think it's evenly important, or maybe even more important, is also to keep an eye on who visited your booth and what to do with the follow-up. So I think we'll talk about that also later on. So that's extremely important. So to make sure that the investment you do, because, well, in the end, it's an investment to participate in an exhibition. So you need to make the best of it by training your distributor and making sure that you can have an efficient follow-up. If you do not have a distributor yet, since suppose it's your first time to participate in an exhibition in China, definitely, like you mentioned in the introduction, you can have EU SME Centre to help you to send some people there on behalf of EU SME Centre or some external third parties. I know that also, I'm from Belgium, a lot of Belgian economic agencies, government agencies, can also provide you with some help. So I definitely recommend you to talk to this government agency or your Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure they also have some solutions. And well, I can also give you very briefly, we also, as a company, as you mentioned in the introduction, so we have our team in China. Unfortunately, I'm not able to travel to China myself, so I'm living in Europe. But indeed, we have been representing many of our customers or even non-customers before, because indeed they wanted to participate in exhibitions. So we had also this, what I explained before, the training plus the presence at the exhibition with 2 or 3 people, and also then helping them with the follow-up. So in this way, I definitely recommend you don't just put the China project on hold, but if there is an interesting exhibition, definitely there are solutions to participate.
Very good, thank you, Bart. And what do you think, Lina? You also have a lot of experience with trade fairs. What do you think?
Yeah, my experience with trade fairs started in Shanghai Expo, where we used to have 35,000 people for 6 people in the pavilion that were Lithuanian, and we had 35,000 visitors per 8 hours of work. So that's where my experience started. And thank you for a nice introduction. We currently represent more than 10 food and beverage brands in China, and we were very actively involved in exhibitions. So I think one thing that probably could be mentioned is that participating in an exhibition is a choice that has to be weighed down regarding to some key principles. So one is who is organizing the exhibition, because we, with those 10 brands, have attended 3 exhibitions that were online, and the local governments, local semi-governmental organizations, chambers, and so, they were able to organize B2B meetings online between the European brands and the interested distributors. And so then the vital component was to introduce the brand in such a way that it would be clear that the Chinese consumers would be interested to buy it, that the product is suitable for China, and then that local governmental representatives would be interested to find a reliable partner who would be catering these brands to the Chinese consumers. So this was something that we explored very widely in the past year and a half. And then secondly, I think participating in an exhibition doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a booth or a stand. So what we were doing is when the client would have an interesting industry exhibition, we would be sending our representative just to do a screening and see who is in that exhibition, who could be the potential partner, what are the subjects that are being discussed, what is the content in the conferences and the meetings and so. And that proved to be very valuable too, to gain market insights as well as contacts for the business development. I think that are the two key points that I think I could add on top of what Bart already shared.
Right. Thank you, Lina. And we will have the chance today to go in more detail into some of the aspects you mentioned. So another question, a question for Bruno now. Bruno, maybe you have you represent a company, you have a different perspective from Bart and Lina. So from your perspective, what is your general experience with trade fairs in China, considering the nature of your business, of course?
Okay, thanks for having me. Indeed, I'm a little bit different from the two other speakers. I'm no expert in trade fairs. I'm an end user and a participant, in particular, participant in a coming EU SME Pavilion at the CIIF. Again, I have a very specific experience. My experience is with my company CIIF. We did when we started the business 2004. It's a long time ago, but we joined in the very beginning. We joined a few trade fairs, and then we found that with the booth, we found it doesn't work. It doesn't bring us anything. So we stopped for many years after that. We didn't do any trade fairs, which in my industry is something common to do. I mean, all over the world, companies doing maintenance consulting and maintenance related software, we do trade fairs. But we found, my conclusion was it doesn't work in China. In the past few years, though, we started to go back into a couple of fairs, usually picking very specialized trade fairs. For us, it's environmental industry related because it's our main market. We're already well recognized, and maybe that's one aspect. We're already well known actually in environmental industry. We have lots of customers. We already have some kind of traction in that industry, and there we found we are able to better use a trade fair. By doing a lot of other things outside of the fair and doing a workshop, maybe doing presentations, maybe we come back to that, how we do it. Working like this, we still don't do a lot of trade fairs. We do a couple a year, two, three maximum a year, and we don't. I cannot say we get business. We don't get leads. We don't get business leads from trade fairs. We don't. Is it specific to our industry or is it something we could do better? But we don't. For us, a trade fair is a branding tool. That's how we look at us joining this CIIF. I had a review with my marketing team yesterday, two days ago, and I very clearly we don't expect any business lead from this. We can come back to that. Why is that? But we don't. But we expect to work on our brand, and then we have a couple of specific actions we plan to take at the fair, before the fair, during the fair, after the fair. That's our view of trade fairs.
Thank you, Bruno. That's very, very interesting because branding, of course, is actually we heard this many times from many different companies. And I would also like to ask you, you have a very long history of being very open about your products, about your solutions, which I think could have inspired maybe some potential competitors. And since we discussed about IPR in the previous session, can you share something about this? What is your experience in this?
It is true. It's a strategic marketing decision we made early on. I think back in 2006, 2007, where we actually started to publish a lot of content. We are very open with content. We are very proactive with content. For us, it's a newsletter that is relayed on social media and a lot of articles. But basically, it's a newsletter where we publish case studies and articles on what we do. So we've been very open. It's a choice we made. And it generally it works. It made us known, especially because of all the case studies. The downside and the risk, which we looked at early on when we started, is that people could look at what we write and maybe be inspired. Maybe it's good, and maybe try to copy. And this has happened. It has happened quite a lot. We have maybe a dozen companies try to copy us or be inspired by us and think, well, maybe Bruno got rich with doing this. Maybe we can also get rich. And then most of them disappeared, and we still have two copycats in the market. Companies that basically didn't copy our stuff, didn't just take our software code or anything like this, but really got inspired, maybe pretended to be us or pretended to be our partner, used our slogans, our keywords, and so on, all this kind of stuff. And these two are still alive, but they don't disturb us too much. They don't take market shares from us, or very, very little. They are disturbing. So in the context of a trade fair, and that's a discussion we still have every time with my team when we join a fair or a conference. We do a lot of conferences. It's a little bit different, but where we speak, where we present what we do. We continue to be very open. So it's a strategy, it's a marketing strategy we review regularly, once a year, let's say, and we debate it. So this year, we still continue to be very, very open. And in the trade fair, we will still be. So when we show demonstration of our products, and we answer questions from the visitors openly. It's a risk we take. I mean, knowing that what we do is not easy to copy. I mean, you cannot just take it and copy it. It's mostly we would inspire people, and maybe they can copy our marketing. They can copy our story. But we remain open, and there's this risk that people come and observe, and once in a while we see these companies coming up, and they have a very similar approach. And if they really copy us, and if we can do something under the law, let's say, we'll do. Typically, our lawyer will threaten them, and then usually they would stop. That's it. But I would say a lot of companies cannot do the same. It depends a lot on your company's business. But we still choose to be very open in how we communicate about what we do.
Thank you, Bruno. This is very insightful to hear. Maybe going back to Lina now. What do you think? You mentioned already a few interesting points, but can you maybe elaborate a bit more? What do you think are important factors to take into account when preparing the fair, so before the fair?
So yeah, I totally support Bruno that you don't need to be scared of people copying you, but there is a story of my client where they arrived to Chinese exhibition, and the distributor came over and offered them to buy the rights to their own trademark, because the distributor saw who will be attending the fair, and they registered the trademark in advance, and they had the trademark already belonging to the distributor. And then they said, it's better you work with me or you can buy the trademark. So then, regarding to what Matthias has said, and we also discussed it with him in depth, there are two key aspects. One is that there is only one chance to file this trademark. It is if you're first. And this is how China works. So this is something you cannot be dismissing. And that applies to any industry. And secondly, what we discussed with Matthias earlier as well is that in China, your company will only be known by its Chinese name, because just like Huawei, you wouldn't use Chinese characters to Google it when you're in Europe, just so the Chinese consumers wouldn't use your foreign name to do the research. And so the other thing that we do when preparing is we create a Chinese name. And maybe later you can share my company's website. You can download and see what is the process that is typical for Chinese name creation. It's not just choosing a Chinese character that sounds like it, but there are a lot of semantic meanings, meaning that there are a lot of ideas that you put into that name that should represent the country, should represent the industry, and so on. And the third very important thing that we do in China, when you meet somebody in an exhibition, you shake hands, you exchange WeChat, right? So by now you should have the WeChat already. And then the next thing you do is you send a business card on WeChat. And then the third thing you do, you send this PDF that's called 公司简介, company profile. And then overseas, nobody does that because people use websites. But then in China, they want everything to be prepared for them. So you need to feel like this was given to you, person to person, face to face. And so that's why nobody will be interested to go and research your English website. But then if you have a company profile that in 25 slides explains why this product is good for China market, whether this is at all compliant with Chinese standards, who are you, what are you bringing, what is the value, then people will be interested to meet you, to reply to you. And I think I shared earlier that we have researched more than 500 of such profiles and tailor-made kind of way how to do it. And we have examples on my website. And also I have sent the whole structure of technical methodology to Alessio, and he will be able to share this with the participants. Some of the steps that people really don't think about, but then because everybody wants to sell to China, you need to prove that you are determined to do what it takes when the sales start coming in, because you know, it's easy to say that I'm ready to sell, but how many companies are really ready, especially when they are SMEs? So that is something that is very useful and immediately puts you at a very different competitive advantage.
Very good. Thank you, Lina. So question for Bart now. We talk about what is important before the fair, but what about during the fair? How can you maximize your benefits from trade fairs?
Yeah, so all the points pointed out by Lina and Bruno are really, I think, to the point. Very important is indeed that you decide which exhibition to go to, because indeed, I mean, there's even today in COVID times, there's so many exhibitions in different places in China, and it's never easy to really understand which has really a value or which hasn't. So that's, I think, very important is which exhibition to go to. Who will be the audience coming to this exhibition? Will it be more, I mean, sometimes you even have these exhibitions or shows where there's a lot of private people coming. So do you want to be there? Probably not. But then I think a key issue or problem or misunderstanding about participating in a fair is don't think that people will come to you and talk to you in fluent English, because even if you are in an exhibition in Shanghai, which is of course a place where there's a lot of foreigners living, and of course also more and more Chinese people speaking English, but I've had, I mean, we've been in exhibitions, I don't know, the past 10 to 15 years on average, I don't know, 4 to 10 or so, let's say almost every month we are on an exhibition, and still today I still have customers who think that you just go there and then you have 1 or 2 people, and then nowadays everybody talks English, but 90% of the time they will be just sitting there and saying nothing because nobody understands. So a lot of people don't really talk English. So make sure that you have somebody there who can speak and understand English, not Chinese, but not only just be able to translate, but also you need people who really understand your business or understand your products, because I mean, unfortunately my Chinese is very limited, but I'm sure Lina or others can confirm that it's not about just translating. You really, in Chinese, if you really want your the people on the booth to understand your business, they really need to prepare, because it's so important. Lina mentioned about the PDF file. So indeed, you need to have Chinese marketing materials or Chinese information also available. Well, often what we do is we recommend companies to set up a WeChat account, which is like a kind of a mini website in Chinese, you could say, because there will be some basic information available in Chinese language. So indeed, people can scan the QR code and immediately they will be able to find information about your company or your products in Chinese. And well, I think you need to keep an open mind because, I mean, often building this trust and being really showing that indeed you have something to offer, because like Lina mentioned, I mean, the competition is so fierce and you really need to find a way or a position. How can I differentiate from my competitors? What is unique about my product? What is unique about my technology? So this is, I mean, this doesn't go only for participation in trade fairs. It's actually very general in China. You need to know your market, and because only then you will be able to really find your way or your position in the market.
Thank you, Bart. And maybe social media sometimes are very useful and tool to also increase the understanding of your product, to communicate your product. And by the way, we are going to do a very aggressive promotional plan for the companies doing a CIIF starting from next month. But maybe, Lina, I know you have a lot of experience with social media. Maybe you can share something on this area, specific case, or something to use that you found particularly useful.
So we never focus on only one element. So social media cannot cover all your needs. First, you need to understand what are you bringing to Chinese consumers, to the end user, so then you can use all the other tools that are required. And same with sales in China. We do B2B sales, and always at a certain period of time, we end up on e-commerce channels. But this is not the first goal. First, you need to understand how the Chinese consumers will react. And so our experience with social media was twofold. One, we set up the first Lithuanian national WeChat account, and we used these PDF documents, listing them like a digital catalog on the WeChat account, where anybody visiting a pavilion would be able to download all the information about the company. And that served two purposes. One, well, nobody leaves WeChat and goes to a website, so we needed to put the information somewhere. And secondly, because it is the national platform, this immediately is seen as endorsed by the government. And so this company is then becoming a reliable company to collaborate with and has a much higher success chance when starting to work with the distributors. Now, the second thing that we did is we did a Wechat training. We had 160 participants and we did weekly sessions on WeChat. And so we taught them how to grow their audience, how to communicate on WeChat, how to build their own personal profile. So it's social media, you need to think not only for the company, but for you as an individual, because in China, people do business with people, right? So then if this person seems trustworthy, if this is the person who will reply quickly, is respectful, is giving you what you need, is replying in Chinese standards, like 10 seconds, right?
Yes.
So then this will be an interesting partner. And so the person is really representing the company. And then one more thing that I wanted to add on to what Bruno was saying is that participating in an exhibition will never be, for me or for our clients, just going there and waiting for people to come. Actually, we start preparing 2 or 3 months in advance and start inviting companies that we believe would be interested. And so during CIIE in 2019, we got to invite 9 governmental delegations from different regions in China to visit a high-tech, like an IT booth. And actually there were a lot of MOUs and developments coming out from that, but it was not just coming and waiting for people to come. And this was done by majority part through WeChat, through social media. I think, I mean, I can talk about it for 2 hours. So maybe if people have questions, they can just reach out.
Absolutely, absolutely. But another question for Bruno, and then a final question for all of you. So Bruno, you mentioned that the reason you joined trade fairs is mostly for branding. So what kind of if you were to select to prioritize one type of visitors, which one would you prioritize? Would it be like government kind of representatives, or would it be business representatives? What kind of, or state-owned enterprises, private enterprises? What would that be?
Well, it's not exactly like this, but my main market is government infrastructures. So naturally, it's, you know, it creates a category of people I want to meet. But if you go a bit deeper, I say I don't expect to get business leads from a fair due to experience, due to our type of business mostly. But we try to map in the preparation work that we do. As Lina said, you know, maybe 3 months before, and we try to have a holistic approach. I think that was the word she used. We try to map who we could meet at the exhibition, at the show, and it's, you know, it's, for me, it's people from the industry, government and other associations type of people, and it's maybe media journalists and so on. So those rough categories that we try to reach in terms of our branding. And then the question comes, what do we do? As Lina said, how do we attract people? And there's a direct proactive approach to invite, but then how do you motivate people to come? And this CIIF is at the big exhibition center. You know, for me personally, I don't like to go there. It's far away, and I need to drive and be in the traffic jam. And it's, well, now it's very hot. It will be September. It will not be that hot. But if you go now, you know, you'll be waiting in a queue, and that place is so huge. You walk for 1 hour. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go. So how to get people to go there? So you need to have something special. Do you organize a workshop? Do you announce something? Do you have a big announcement to make? Do you sign a partnership agreement? Do you sign a big client? Do you have, is the organizer, in your case, in this, is the EU SME Centre, EU SME Centre will have, maybe on the second day, whatever, we'll have one national ambassador will be there, maybe the Italian ambassador will be there, and for a workshop, and naturally he will bring with him, you know, if the Italian ambassador is there, you will have the heads of big Italian companies coming, and maybe their clients. And then, you know, it will, so how do we as a SME, as just among one SME among 20 in the bigger booth, how could we help, you know, by discussing with you guys, by discussing with the other companies, how do we come up with something and multiple things that will actually attract our audience, again, be they end users or related government or influencers or media. How do we, so it's a holistic, you know, 360-degree approach, and I just gave one example there. But that's really what we try to do when we join a fair. And so you cannot just join. It is going to be a failure. You have to have a whole program before, during, after. And that's it's a lot of work, and it's a much bigger investment than the fair itself. You know, it's like an iceberg. You know, everything is like an iceberg.
Absolutely.
Top the iceberg, and then you have all the hidden work, and that's a big work for a fair like this. I think otherwise it's not going to work.
Absolutely, thank you, Bruno, also for mentioning all these issues. These issues are actually all of them we're going to do as part of this European SME Pavilion at CIIF. We're going to also organize media interviews and trainings. We're offering, possibility for SMEs to organize trainings in our pavilions. Maybe we are a bit late. We have 3 minutes left, 2 minutes now. I will ask one final question to all of you, 1 minute each. If you were to conclude, like with some practical tips to SMEs to participate or to better prepare trade fairs, or how to follow up after trade fairs, what would that tips be? Maybe starting with Bart.
Yes. So let me say a lot of has already been said, but What I want to stress, I only have 1 minute, so I'll try to say it in 1 minute.
Maybe 50 seconds now.
I think with COVID, I'm a positive guy. So, and with COVID, of course, it's a bad thing and it's really had bad implications, but I look at it from a positive side. And I have seen so many European SMEs going to China, buying a ticket and signing a contract or participating in a fair without really knowing what's going on, without really knowing the market. So the positive thing now is that if you want to participate in a trade fair, or you want to sign a contract with or you want to find a distributor, and you cannot travel to China, so you have to do your homework first. There's no other way, you have to. So you try to find information from internet, you contact EU SME Centre, your Chamber of Commerce, you of course, it's also good news for me as a consultant because we can do market research, we can do store checks, we can participate. So in fact, for me, for my business, it's not a bad thing, COVID, to be honest. But in fact, I'm looking further than that. Indeed, like I said, I have the impression that those companies that are looking at China, I think they take more time to prepare. So that's a good thing because in the past, of course, a lot of projects fail in China simply because of bad preparation and bad follow-up or lack of control. So, and I hope that after COVID is passed and we are back to normal, that companies will also stick to this new approach, saying that, okay, if you want to go to China, take it seriously and be well prepared. And it's even more important now today than it used to be in the past.
Thank you, Bart. Lina.
We calculated that with the governmental support, usually to come to the fair and to present the products would be something around 10 to 13,000 euros. So now during the COVID time, because if you calculate each salary, the visas, the transportation, the hotels, it comes up to some incredible cost. So we think that it is much more worthwhile to invest this money indeed in the research instead of going there for the first time, because most of the products that are sold in Europe, especially in food and beverage, are not compliant in China. So you will need to adapt a lot of labels, recipes, and a lot of things will need to be done. So it's maybe more worthy to invest this time and effort in developing a product that is suitable for China market before you go and try to prove your worth in an exhibition. And I think that works especially so for any tech-related products or any kind of, because the users will not see it the same way and everything will have to be adapted. And so are you ready to do it? I think
thank you, Lina.
that was my key takeaway.
Food and beverage, but also in industrial, a lot of machinery have to comply with many standards with different. Bruno, to you.
It's very interesting. I was going to say something along the same lines, and I'm going to say it, but I guess it means it's a general good China advice. I would say. I mean, a lot of companies don't succeed in the market. I mean, generally, a lot of SMEs don't succeed. In general, business is difficult. But I was going to say you need to invest time and money with a long-term view, and I think this applies to joining a fair as well. We mentioned the 3-month preparation period or whatever it is. So and the cost, Lina just mentioned the high cost. In any case, high cost. And if you're trying to have a 360 view and preparation and doing other things there, event and inviting people, there's going to be a lot of extra cost. So invest time and money and with a long-term view. And I think the story about the initial presentation about intellectual property protection is exactly the same. You cannot just go and show your brand if your brand is not registered. So that means cost investment before you actually come and show your face. Is that a good advice, or is it like a warning? That's going to scare a lot of newcomers. Well, maybe so. But I think that's a good China advice generally for joining a fair, for starting a business here, or whatever. It's going to take in investment and time.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Indeed, it is an excellent advice. I will have many other questions to ask you, and I'm sure there will be also some from the participants. We are a bit late, so we are not going to have a Q&A, but in case you have any questions, please contact us anytime, contact the speakers. We will be happy to put you in touch with them. We will also be sharing some files after these presentations from the speakers, and this webinar, the recording of this webinar is also going to be uploaded on our YouTube channel. And thank you to all the speakers. Thank you also to Matthias who gave this very short, concise, but very practical presentation about IPR issues. I would like to conclude by saying that by reminding that we have still a couple of spots left for our European SME Pavilion at the upcoming CIIF, and indeed we are cooperating with the local administration there, with local business associations to provide this kind of holistic, comprehensive program, all for very, very, by the way, low prices. If you want to know more, just get in touch with us. Thank you to all the participants, to all the speakers, and we will be in touch again in the next weeks. Thank you. Have a great day or evening for who is in China.